Thank you. Now, as I say, my career in the music business began as a singer, obviously, and then I got interested in a lot of other stuff. I was very interested in record production, and I decided the first time I was in the studio that was something I really wanted to pursue. I loved the idea of being able to, bye. What did I say? We're going to eat dinner. We're going to drink heavily. Some kind of sightseeing. Have fun. It's disconcerting that a chunk of the audience will get up and walks out. They're all smiling, so I think it's alright. So anyway, yeah, I love the idea of producing records about you could hire great musicians much better than yourself and tell them what to play. I thought that was incredibly cool. And so I started producing records as Gordon and my career kind of wound down a bit. And as I've explained before in these things, Gordon and I never actually broke up. We never had a huge row. We never did a last gig. We just kind of drifted into doing other things. And in my case, what I really wanted to do was produce records. And I started doing that. In fact, I'll tell you another story I've never told, which is that it's kind of mildly interesting because I know there's some people here who are kind of musician freaks and know who's who. And the very first record I produced, actually, was with a guy called Paul Jones. Does anyone remember who Paul Jones was? He was in which band? Manfred Mann, very good. He was the original singer with Manfred Mann. The guy who did, you know, there she was, just a walking down the street. The great version. Very good. He was such a great singer. The stuff he did on the bridge of Do I Get was absolutely brilliant. He's also, by the way, one of the best harmonica players in the world, still to this day. If you look on YouTube, there's amazing clips of him playing blues harp. He's stunningly good. Anyway, so Paul, I owe a debt of gratitude to because when at that time, if you wanted to be a record producer, there was no way you could kind of practice or do it on your own. Now, if you want to produce a record, you get a laptop, you get, Logic or even, what do you call it? No, I meant GarageBand. Thank you very much. That's what I'm saying. No, you get Logic or Pro Tools, or if you want to cheat, you get GarageBand. But it sounds great. Anyway, you can sit at home and make records, and they sound really good. But then, if you couldn't get musicians in the studio, there was no way you could be a record producer. So Paul Jones said, I'd watched me work on some of the Peter and Gordon records that I gradually got more involved in the production of, and when he was making his solo album, he said, would you like to do some tracks on this? That's amazing, I'd love to. And so I did. So the very first record I produced was a single with Paul Jones. It was a very minor hit in the UK. It was a Bee Gees song called And the Sun Will Shine, but I thought we could get into a hit record, and we didn't quite. But one of the things people find interesting about it now was the band. For my very first time in a professional studio with a real singer, I wanted to make sure I had one hell of a rhythm section. So what I actually did was, and some of these people you may know, some you may not, but I had a piano player called Micky Hopkins, who's a legend, he played on tons of great records. The bass player was a guy who's very relevant, actually, to the actor on stage in this very spot last night. And that's a man called Paul Samuel Smith. And he was the original bass player in the Yardbirds. And he also went on to produce Carly Simon and Cat Stevens. So a man not without significance in the music business. And so I had the two of them, and then on guitar, I had a chap called Jeff Beck. Played exceedingly well. And playing drums, I had Paul McCartney. So it was a good rhythm section. Because Paul's a great drummer, as you probably know. He plays everything really well. And he played great drums on this record. So that was the first record I ever did. And after I'd been producing for a while, and based on the fact that Paul had heard some of the stuff I'd done, and indeed had played on some of it. He later played on the James Taylor track for me, played bass on Carolina in My Mind, and a bunch of stuff. Anyway, so he asked me, he had this idea for a record label, as you probably know. The Beatles started a record label called Apple, and they were setting the whole thing up, and Paul said to me, will you produce some records for it? And I said, I'd love to. And then he said, well, actually, we need an A&R guy. Why don't you be head of A&R? Which means you pretty much are in charge of who gets signed, and so on. And what records they make, and who produces them, and what songs they do, and all that stuff. You're in overall charge. And so I took the job, which was very exciting. And we used to have weekly A&R meetings with the Beatles and decide who to sign and stuff. And as you know, Apple has a bit of a weird reputation for being a muddle, and it was kind of a muddle. But through the muddle, we still signed some great people. We've signed a girl, Mary Hopkin, who Paul McCartney found up spotted on a TV talent show, and he produced her first record, Those Were the Days. It was a huge hit single all over the world, and a brilliant production. George Harrison signed an R&B singer called Jackie Lomax, and made a great record with him, and so on. And then another band we signed was brought in by Mal Evans, who was the Beatles' roadie, as you probably know. And they were a band called the Ivies. And Mal found them, made a demo tape, we liked it, we signed them, we made an album. It did okay, had a minor hit in the UK, nothing in America. And so when it came time to talk about their second album, for some reason, I think probably based on input from the Americans, who didn't like the name The Ivies, we didn't just make a new album, we changed the name of the band from The Ivies to Badfinger. Exactly. And Badfinger turned out to be a really good band and really good songwriters. And they wrote sort of songs, as you may know, that lived into other eras, and all kinds of people have recorded, and a very successful but very tragic career. Their personal lives were awful. There was all kinds of terrible stories in there. There was a suicide and all kinds of stuff happened. So it was a miserable story, but the music was amazing. And the band kept going just because the music was so good. And even as people left or died or whatever, like a lot of great bands, they kept going with bringing in new people and keeping going into different eras. And one of our strokes of fortune tonight is that one of the people who was in one of the later iterations of Badfinger was none other than the aforementioned Jeffrey Allen Ross. So, I'm going to take a second here and check my tuning rather than forget to do it later. So every time you use the case, it gets weird.
Well, while you're doing that, there's a couple things I want to mention. One, because you people are so cool, I've actually never publicly thanked Peter for changing my life. But enough of that. The song we're going to do is Peter's favorite Badfinger song, and it's most people's favorite Badfinger song. You got to put it back on. It's a song called Day After Day, and it went to number 4. It was actually the highest charted hit that Badfinger ever had.
Come again, it wasn't bigger?
No. I think that only got to number 6.
There you go.
Do that one too.
Anyhow, but for all you musician geeks and Beatle freaks, you know, everybody knows the piano part in Day After Day. It was played. Anybody know who played it? No, Leon Russell. Because of course he was friends with George, who produced the record, and you know that. So I thought a little bit of tribute for the kids. All right. Oh boy, that's a good one.
Thank you very much.